Hey everybody.
Hey, how's it going? Welcome to the Scion vlog, where we talk about Scion things.
We've done a few takes and John didn't feel like we had enough energy. So
No, we don't have enough energy. We need more energy to entice and grab you in to the... We bought some books from the library.
We didn't.
What do you call it when you buy books from the library?
We borrow them.
We borrowed these books.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of them. You can count them if you like. They're about Yoruba and Maya peoples and their religions.
Because that's where our next research projects are going.
Boom, boom, double pole. Looks like.
Yes.
Maybe you want to.
Excited.
Yeah, you could totally change it though, if you had like 40 people that wanted to help you vote.
Yeah, but don't
in a
cheat.
different direction. But don't change. We got a question today that has multiple large parts.
Yeah, so we're just going to answer it a whole bunch.
And it requires me to wear my glasses, so you have a little glare. And I apologize. Stop kicking the cat out of the way.
I was just stroking the cat as she went by. So our question today: can you run us through character creation and promotion of one of your signature characters, so we have a clearer vision of how stuff transpires in your groups?
We can only assume signature character means one of the like main people who went from like hero, early demigod up to god.
Yeah.
We're making that assumption without being able to ask you. And we thought this would be a nice time to kind of highlight our poor friends who used to be in our game and don't get to play anymore.
But they played for a long time, so their characters are a lot of fun and there are a lot of stories. And we've been doing way too much stuff with Jeff lately. Jeff needs a break, so we're going to talk about somebody else for once.
You do anything with Jeff?
Just
No,
Just
I was
generally.
talking about, she's a crazy person.
Yeah. So anyways, we're going to talk about Ketela, who became Yolanda Cheadle first. I think we're doing her first, right?
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. She's a Scion, and she started in our games. Actually started as a demigod because she began in a game that happened after the TPK when the Jelly Pit kids died. And so everybody started at Legend 5, but she wrote, she had backstories written and knew what she had been doing before that point.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me. So she started out as a little hot lady who was very, very into her parent and very into sacrifice and stuff.
She didn't know very much about it because she was actually a Swede. She was from Sweden and she had never been to Mexico. And so she had a general idea who Talek was and kind of what was going on there, but she didn't really understand Aztec religion or anything, and she didn't look it up. So
but she knew she was supposed to murder people.
Yeah, she just kind of murdered people for a long time.
Yeah.
She was wanted by authorities in a lot of countries.
So it her arc, I guess stat-wise, was she was medium physical. And then not worrying about a lot of the other socials besides appearance. So it was like medium physicals, a lot of stamina, a lot of appearance, and then kind of median mentals. Mm-hmm. They weren't super important to her. She was going for a mainly healing role with some fertility and earth. And so the stamina was the main thing to get, and then the rest of the stuff kind of appearance was very good.
Yeah. Which was also a big stat for fertility.
Yeah. So she relied on the stats that worked with the Peruse real well. Over time, she went through a lot of changes. She got raped by the king of the Spring Court.
Yes, she was raped by a fairy king.
And the group kind of let it happen, right?
She did it because he was going to kill John Doe. So she did it to save John Doe's life.
Right.
It was horrible and traumatizing for her.
Yeah, and the whole group kind of went outside and turned their back and kind of let it happen. It was pretty brutal.
Well, I think John and Woody weren't there. They had run away, chasing something. And so the only people still in the building were Vivian and Aurora, who kind of didn't know what to do with that because they weren't.
Well, yeah, because Ketela said, I need you to do this. So
she said, I'm going to do this, and then it was horrifying, and nobody knew what to do, and none of the combat people were there to help her, so
yeah,
it was horrible.
Then she was pregnant for a while. I believe at this point she was already a werewolf.
I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure she was.
I think she was already a werewolf, yes. So she was carrying werewolf fairy babies.
Yeah, werewolf fairy babies, which sounds ridiculous.
It was ridiculous.
But she was one of the werewolf people who knew she was a werewolf fairly early on, and so worked with the other people to kind of help control her and keep her caged. Yes. Whereas Woody, didn't believe he was a werewolf for a long, long time and just thought everybody else was crazy.
And then when he found out, went kind of batshit. So.
Yeah, he wasn't cool with it.
But yeah, so Ketela, she had become a werewolf because she had been in Wolfsheim saving some children from werewolves and had gotten bitten and failed her stamina roll, so she had contracted lycanthropy. And that was the beginning of her great virtue roller coaster. She got ambition.
Right. She did a lot of The virtues kind of rolled around as she either fought off, tried to stop lycanthropy, or like gave into her baser emotions, up until a point where there was like a giant werewolf mess.
There was. The other PCs were like, well, we're on like a boat in the middle of the ocean, and these guys, if it's like a full moon tomorrow, we have nowhere to put them, so we're just going to leave them on the boat, leave the boat in the middle of the ocean, and we're going to leave. And just let them be crazy werewolves on a boat in the middle of the ocean. But unfortunately, the werewolves swam to shore and had like a huge werewolf battle royale, and it was a bad thing.
It was a bad thing. It ended with Ketela dying. She was then saved by kind of Tezcatlipoca and Tlaloc. They let her live again. They stripped her of her werewolfness, and they also killed her children inside of her.
Yeah.
And then threw her back to Earth and yelled at her and were like, "Rawr, I'm a giant Tlaloc monster."
It was very traumatic for her.
It was a super traumatic scene.
She hadn't really dealt with the Aztec gods much, and then the first time she met them, they were like all over her, and her father like is a giant monster screaming at her for being a bad person.
So when she was like younger and she had seen Tlaloc, like maybe he visited her as a crocodile or as a turtle or as some dude, but then seeing him in his full form, like fully angry and really upset at her, and then him aborting her children.
Yeah, and she had no Aztec background, so she didn't understand why, like, what things he was mad at her for or why they were wrong. So it was basically just horrible on top of horrible.
Yeah.
Kind of a hallmark of a lot of Ketla's life.
So then she was traumatized, and she focused on trying to obey everything he ordered her. Like trying to, I can't get pregnant, or I can't do these things, and trying to be very, very good with the rules that he told her, but her not having a complete grasp of all the rules of Aztecs. Like,
for instance, she had originally, she would often trade sex for things that she needed, because she kind of didn't care about it very much. It didn't bother her, so she would, like, if the party needed gas for their truck, she'd go have sex with the gas station attendant, get free gas, sometimes then murder him afterwards because she knew she was supposed to murder people, and that didn't bother her. But after this happened, she was like, okay, I can never have sex again because I can't get pregnant, because pregnancy is bad. I don't really know why, but I know it's bad.
Mm-hmm. So from there, she started looking for different people who she could kind of be her parental figures.
Yeah.
Because the person she'd put a lot of faith and trust in turned out to be a horrible, terrifying monster.
Yeah, and since she didn't know how to make him happy, she was like, I need to find somebody else who will take care of me.
Yeah, and she didn't do that consciously, but she did start, attaching herself to more parental figures.
Yeah.
This led her to...
She went through a long run of people. Like, she kind of set up parenting with a lot of different people, and some of them were good choices and some of them weren't. And then she got to the worst choice. Yeah,
then she got to Demeter.
Which was Demeter.
And Demeter was busy kind of becoming a Titan at the time by taking over the deep dark forest and covering it in plants, like cultivated plants, fields of wheat, fields of grain, instead, as opposed to your big dark trees.
And for Demeter, she was like, oh, well, Ketla can be my replacement Persephone.
Yeah.
Who will not leave me, and I will keep her on lockdown forever.
Yeah. So she had her in the forest working for her for like 6 to 8 months or something ridiculous. Yeah. Like she ended up making these weird breed of sunflower people that like walked around. They were
like 2.5 feet tall, little, like, she called them the sunflower children because they had like little faces, but they were like little sentient sunflowers that ran around. They were kind of horrible abominations of nature, but she loved them very much. She told them they had to reproduce all the time, and they would reproduce by like running their faces into each other to share pollen. So like anytime she was there, just like millions of little sunflower children running up to her and like hitting her in the legs with their faces.
Yeah. And at this point, she has gotten the level of health that starts using intelligence, and started getting a lot more intelligence fate bonds.
Yeah.
So her stamina and intelligence are going kind of crazy. And then and appearance, a lot of appearance stuff, and then everything else is starting to fall by the wayside.
Because she's not doing it. It was around this time that she stopped being able to really do any combat because her dex had gotten to a point where she hadn't kept it up, so she couldn't hurt people, and her strength had gotten really poor, and so she couldn't hurt people. So she had started out with a relic knife that gave her some powers, and she just couldn't use it to hurt people anymore, really. And so that presented some challenges when it came to sacrifice stuff. She had to start sacrificing from herself more often than from other people.
Yeah, and I think most of her relics had changed at this point as well. I think each time she like kind of befriended a Titan-esque person to kind of work with as a parent figure, they changed one of her classic Aztec relics into something more like them. So I know she had like Greek sandals from
Yes,
Demeter.
she had hiking boots from Sloth originally that became Greek sandals.
Greek sandals. And then she had, where did her flower skin come from?
I think Demeter just did that. She kept her fingernails, which were the only thing from Tolkien that she kept all the way up to God.
Yeah.
She had tattoos of flowers at some point, and I don't recall where she got those from, actually.
Neither.
I think it may be just something that Demeter actually gave her.
Okay, or maybe something happened. We may have forgotten.
Yeah, sorry.
It's not important. But yeah, so her fate bond started like trailing towards that way. And then I don't remember why. I think it may have just been her being around Woody and Vivian, or I don't remember the instigating incident, but she got...
I'm sorry, our cats are having fights.
It's just the one cat. It's lost in a box. She got a really bad fate bond to stamina. There were several of them, and then... So they were trying to buy off her stamina. And she was I think the only character that has ever successfully completely stopped them from buying off an attribute.
That's true.
Like hardcore, I think she didn't spend XP, God, for a year?
A long time she only spent XP on stamina. Like, she just saved it, she bought it whenever they were going to buy it off. She did nothing else. If they bought it off, she just kept saving up till next time to buy it again.
Yeah. Till the very end, right before Ragnarok, she had all of her stamina was at max, and then she had all but 2 of the stamina max, so that she was completely, there was nothing else that she could buy for stamina.
Yeah. She's like, if I did buy everything.
Yeah, and so then the fate bond stopped buying off, but it was, I guess, too late then.
It was a rough road, but she did succeed in doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a long time. Which is impressive, because people have succeeded with abilities and boons because you don't have to buy as many of those, but attributes are hard.
Yeah,
so.
attributes are super hard to fight against.
Yeah.
And then she's had a lot of her relics, because she's like given into Titan forces and then like bequeathed herself to other people. She's sometimes gotten relics that like were a little bit powerful and then became like crazy powerful, and then someone took it away because they were like, "Oh, that you got that from a Titan, you can't have that." So she did a lot of yo-yoing of relics, where it was like, "Oh, I got a cool relic. Oh, wow, it does like amazing things. That's way too powerful. Oh God, now it's nothing again."
Yeah. So she along with, I think, John Doe were like the big characters who were like, these are examples of what happens if you hang out with Titans, because you get a lot of power, but then you go off the rails and people have to stop you or you're gonna die. She had a long, weird, like, aside from the horrible incident with the Spring King, she had a lot of weird, like, romantic stuff, especially when she started being like, I don't want romantic stuff. There was a time that she married a Svartalfar for one day. As part of like a ruse for people to kill him. She was like, it's cool, guys, I'll just go tell him I'm going to marry him, and I'll lead him upstairs where you can murder him. And that was completely fine with her, because she's not big on conscience. So that was pretty horrible for him. He got murdered by Woody when they got upstairs. And then there was Thor.
Oh yeah. And then she had Thor's kids for a while. Late in there.
She showed up in Asgard with lots and lots of epic appearance, and Thor was like, hey there. And so she was like, I guess that happened, because Thor's ultimate charisma, she did not say no to him. And then Sif was in the room, and it was really awkward. It was horrible.
Yeah.
So, she went to Aztec school.
And then I get to the very end, she went to Aztec school, right as she had gone. And,
she met Chalchiuhtlicue, who was her father's wife, and she was like, I don't know how to be an Aztec, help me. I'm sorry that I'm... Because Chalchiuhtlicue was like, you're still bad, you're terrible, everything you've done is awful, even though you're trying to follow his rules. And so she was like, please help me. And so she was sent to like Aztec school with all the younger Aztecs of Sangria's cult, like trying to learn the basic rules of society. Which is pretty cute.
Yeah, and she spent like 2 months there, and then she learned everything, and then she was like, okay, now I know the rules. Yeah. And I'm never breaking any of them ever again.
Yes, and so then from then on, just like ridiculous insistence on rules. Like, she would try to stop other people in the band from ever having sex, so she's like, sex not okay, guys, you can't do that anymore, it's not cool.
Yeah.
And then finally, that's about the point where she was like, now I have enough appearance and I've gotten to where I want to be, I'm going to turn myself actually into a child. Because she had always kind of wanted to be a child, not an adult. So she finished her run as a goddess as a 7-year-old.
Yes. Yeah. She just turned into a 7-year-old, and then for the most part, people sexually left her alone.
Yeah, it still got weird sometimes because 8 epic appearance, it gets weird, but she was usually able to just keep them away from her.
Yeah. But I do remember, like, there's a tribe of African people that, like, kept trying to steal her.
Yeah, she would just pop root to the mountain and stand there, and there was nothing they could do. And then she had to, when we had to go see Keranos, the band, like, just constantly every few minutes, Kevla, turn your face off, Kevla, turn your face off. You can't be attractive anytime that we were here.
And that means you use my eyes are up here.
Yes. Sorry.
It's
I'm so used to saying, turn your face off.
Yeah.
Just turn it off. So yeah, she didn't really do a lot of stat changing other than the stamina race. Like, she started out being like, I want healing stats and I want appearance. and I want fertility and earth and health, and that's what she did her whole run.
No, it's pretty committed to them. Everything else did that. Like she committed to those things, and she got fate bonds to those things, and everything else just slowly moved to the left.
Yeah, everything went down to 0 because she was not buying it or didn't want it. Yeah. She would occasionally get like a rogue fate bond and be like, today we're going to buy her sky, but most of the time, that's why if you look at her character sheet, you'll see those things are all max and nothing else.
Yeah.
Because that's all she ever did.
She was very focused.
Yes. Her player in general is very focused.
Yeah, Jenny's very focused. Hi, Jenny. You probably aren't watching this.
So anyway, let's talk about
Anyway, so we're going to do 3 people, but we've been talking for 16 minutes already, and you've probably turned it off. So we're going to skip Will.
Sorry, Will.
We're going to do Will. He was a very similar thing to Ketela. He started even later in the game, but like he focused on some stuff, and then he got like really good at those things. So like his fire, water, and survival.
He was the guy that
stamina,
was the worst fate bond, because those 4 things that John named are the only things he was ever allowed to have. He got like plus 400 in fate bonds to those things, and then like negative 200 to everything else. Like he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, and he was an idiot, and nobody liked him. But he could use fire all day, forever.
Yeah. So he was very, very, very similar. Like a couple things, and then really, really hammer those home. But I wanted to talk about him. He does some interesting stuff, and he goes in different places as he makes his way towards, the king of his people. But we didn't have time, and so we're just focused on Goes.
Goes is like the most underrated unsung dude in the games. He's a lot of fun.
And then all Tom's things have like a lot of cool notes in here. So I will just read a few as we go through. And this is one of his newer versions of the Terminus character sheet. He went through a lot of character sheets. So this just says, when passing through the Hittites' territory, pray to LL for permission to cross boundaries.
Because at one point he psychopumped into like the middle of Turkey and pissed off some Hittite god that was there, and then it was just like, okay, now anytime I go through there I have to ask for permission or they're going to kill me.
Oh, this is something I missed too. Tom, of all of us in our group, except Thomas, who never draws, even though he
the guy
has
that plays Woody is an art degree.
2 degrees. He's got 2 art degrees.
He teaches art to children, but he does not draw for our games.
But Tom draws cool little stuff. Like if I was like, "Hey Tom, what does your temple look like?" and then he
draw a little cartoon.
Yeah, he drew like cartoons, but they were very, they would let me know what was happening there, and they would be very, very helpful for my image of what he wanted. Here's another one.
That's his sanctum, I think.
No, I don't think it's his sanctum. I think it's the.
Oh, that's the vault with the things in the sanctum, right? Like, no?
Is it?
I don't know.
No, Tom, tell us what this is. I think it's the Hermes. He's got like a temple to Hermes in his house. That's like, and I think these were all Hermes statues with Hermes doing different stuff.
Yeah.
All the things are in the corner. Because
there it is.
Yeah, here's one of the Hermes statues.
Hermes, and then like, is this him and Cersei?
Yeah, it's him and Cersei.
Yeah.
And then here's the outside.
Yeah, so he would just like sit around and do that.
Okay, this we need for later.
Yes, we do.
Okay, this is just like a list of shit that had happened in the world that like I told him about.
I think it might be mystery questions.
Okay.
He does a lot of, he'd have to write down his mystery questions and then sometimes later then look at the card and be like, oh shit guys, did you remember this thing? Because I just remembered it.
I think this was when he was planning to do to work on an app for the Scion character sheets.
That's right.
And then these are more mystery questions. I'll get to more stuff as we go. But start talking about the beginning of him.
So the very beginning goes, the way that he pitched the character to us is that he was like, he's going to be like an Indiana Jones figure. I want him to be like a world traveler and an adventurer. He's always out for like whatever cool new stuff. He's kind of mercenary. He's kind of about like, I want to get some treasures. I want to get some money. He was supposed to be all about manipulation and wits. He wanted to be like a stealthy trickster character. And he wanted to kind of tap into the Hermes travel thing a lot. So he gave himself a lot of decks, gave himself a lot of like arete, athletics and stuff. And he didn't really start out with a lot of purviews. He came in with, what did he come in with?
Psychopomp Magic.
Just Psychopomp Magic, yeah. And he didn't really even buy up a lot of those at the beginning because he was more about, like, have all my stats. Because I want to do shenanigans. So I don't really need a lot of boons for shenanigans. So he came in as, he had, like, the Indiana Jones hat, and he had, like, a bullwhip that he carried around with him, and he had, like, his magical iPhone. And so he came in as, like, I'm going to be this trickster world traveler treasure hunter. That was his original plan.
Yeah. And so he started doing that. I don't know when it broke off exactly.
I think the problem started with the Church of the Three Satans. I think.
Do you think that late? Demigod?
Well, I mean, before that he didn't really have fate bonds, so the only things keeping him in control were Jeff, pretty much telling him he couldn't do things.
But he was never like he wasn't trying to do that much, like bad stuff, really.
No, he was just a pain in the ass. Like he would steal stuff, or he would like be really snarky, but he wasn't like bad. He wasn't like bad natured.
Right.
So he didn't like do a lot that was really mean. He just was intentionally difficult to everyone.
So pretty early on in Hero, they were down in Mayan territory. He got a copy of the Popol Vuh.
He drew us a nice picture
that
of
he
it.
drew for us. And then one time he went off on his own and fought a giant by himself and like blew every legendary deed he had, and he got this bone from the giant.
There was
And he made it into a club.
Goes because he never had really any physical stats except for Dex. Even early on, he always had a lot of trouble with survivability. Like his stamina was terrible, and he couldn't like deal. Like he didn't have the strength to hold on to anything or fight anything. So
he was one of the few people that really stuck hardcore to their original concept,
I'm not good at
stats wise. Of like I'm not gonna have stamina. I'm just not gonna do it.
Which meant that he died a lot, and Sophia was really irritated with him a lot of the time. But so there began like around Legend 5 a running joke that Goes was this Legend 3 hero that they carried around with him because no matter how high he went in Legend, he still took damage like he was Legend 3. And that continued forever, pretty much.
Well, I mean, he always had dexterity, and then every other stat kind of shifted.
So if it was a power that like nuked a large area and he could Dex Athletics out of it, he'd be golden. But anything else would just take him down.
So going up, like he's tried to keep everything very balanced. He had a lot of Dex, and then he like balanced everything else.
He did have a problem with he would just buy random Arete a lot. Like he'd be like, today I'm buying 1 dot in Arete something that I used it this game, so I feel like I want to get that.
It was just if he got to the end of the game, he bought something, and then he had extra XP. Like let's say it was 2 or 3. He was like, oh, I can afford an Arete, and he bought an Arete.
So for a while he had like 1 or 2 Arete and just a bunch of stuff.
I mean, for a while he still has 1.
Well, later his Fate Bonds started doing that to him, but yeah, he still has like a couple random Arete sticking around.
He's got Arete and 10 different abilities.
Yeah, it's too many.
Legend
it's
9.
too many.
Yeah.
And never like enough Arete to make a difference, just enough to get like a couple dice.
Yeah. But so he's very sneaky, and then when he got the Popol Vuh, he started developing Darkness to go with that, and so he used Darkness a lot. He did a lot. He was mostly just the Psychopomp. He took everybody around, he did all the things for everybody. That was his main kind of job.
He refused to do it a lot, because being the Psychopomp is rough, and he would just be like, well, guys, I spent on my legend, so you're walking. But
that's not refusing. That's
well, sometimes he would also refuse, because he would be like, I don't want to spend my last legend on you guys. But he often did his job. And he did it, pretty well. He just, when your Psychopomp is also a trickster, sometimes he's like, taxi service is not open today.
That almost never happened, and misremembers everything.
I don't think so.
And then he also came up with this map of the world. That he drew all the terras that he found using Psychopomp. So like he had like a matrix map of all the.
So he'd always be able to go, okay, I know where there's an entrance to X near here, so we can go there. Like if we have to get away, we're trying to get somewhere else.
Then when we got to Australia around Legend 5, he started getting some fate bounds, becoming this Church of the Three Satans, which was like basically a church that had kind of formed around the idea that. Jeff, Marcus, and Goes were evil people. Yeah,
they had done something that had like gotten one guy fate bound in there who thought they were all like horrible evil monsters, and so then they became the Three Satans. Goes was the head Satan, and then like Jeff and Marcus, not Jeff and Marcus, Jeff and Chuck. Marcus wasn't there yet.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Jeff and Chuck became like the lesser Satans.
I think they were equal. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Why would they be?
I don't know. That's what I remember you saying. Maybe not. But anyway, so the Three Satans. So it became a whole church that was mostly a Christian church that was just also dedicated to the opposition of the three evil Satans, being Ghost, Jeff, and Chuck. And so Ghost like had to deal with a lot when he was in Australia. These kind of fanatic people that wanted his downfall. And being Ghost, because he was a trickster character, he was like, well, I'm just going to take advantage of this. And so he would use his sneaky trickster powers to make himself. He would impersonate like bishops of the church. And then, like, use church funds to do stuff and kind of just pull off shenanigans, like, give big speeches about how they should hate the Satans when he, in fact, was a Satan. It amused him. He thought it was funny. But it actually caused him to get fate bonds from the church, who thought he was an upstanding citizen. So suddenly he had positive fate bonds to things like justice and integrity, and was starting to get negative fate bonds to his trickster stuff, which freaked him out, because that's what he was trying to do. It's a hazard of being a trickster. If you pretend to be someone else long enough, people will believe you.
Mm-hmm.
Take it.
Okay. Yeah, so then he struggled with fighting off the negative trickster stuff. But he found that he was, conveniently liking the other, good stuff he was getting from this.
Integrity bonuses are
having
great.
Integrity and charisma and appearance. Like, he didn't... I wasn't a big fan of the appearance. But having these things was convenient and helped him with some things. And then he started... then he got to the point where he had the level of magic where he could change people's fate bonds.
Around this time, also, he started buying illusion. Like, he started being like, that's something I should have as a trickster. And so he started...
I think
he never got very
much
high
longer.
with it, but...
I think a while ago.
Okay. But yes, he got Twist the Web, and that is where everything went insane.
Yeah. Basically, just whenever someone got a fate bond, in the group, they would come to him and be like, hey, I don't like this fate bond. Can we figure it out?
He and Sangria both had Sense fate bonds, so as soon as they were like, this fate bond is horrible, this is a fate bond to Sangria, it gives her negative strength, we need that off of her. So... Ghost would be like, okay, coming right up, I will change your fate. And he would go in there and pluck some strings and change it to something more appropriate for the character.
And what this did also for him, since it's a fate purview and it's magic and he's messing with fate, in addition to changing hers, he's also either getting some new fate bonds, or if he's not connected to this person yet, he's becoming connected to this person. Either the fate bond is with the same stats that roll that magic spell, or... the kind of fate bond that Sangria has to that person. So when he was changing it for Sangria, he was really also making the fate bond the same for him.
Yeah. So for example, one of those times that he changed a fate bond for Sangria, he gained one for fate bonds to Brawl, and then he just had Brawl fate bonds forever.
Yeah.
And that is why he has a millionaire fate Brawl. It's not because he wanted to buy Brawl, because he never intended to be a combatter. It's just, that's what happened.
Yeah. So he started doing that with Sangria and Jeff mostly.
He did a couple for Sophia, but in character, Sophia was very unpleasant and no one liked her, so he didn't feel the need to help her that much.
Also, Sangria was able to give him Infinite Legend to give to her, to fight for her and Jeff's fate bond.
Because she had Legendary Surge and was an Aztec, so... Which we have since nerfed, because it was too much.
Yeah. But so he was able to really just change everybody's fate in the group. He did some for Marcus, too. And he started with, okay, well, we're going to do a couple... Now that I have this, you each get one legendary deed and a channel worth. So pick your one that you really want to change. I'm going to channel and deed that one.
Very generous dude.
And that made it even crazier fate bond for him. So at the end, he had a stack of fate bonds like this. And these are full sheets of paper that I've written 6 different people on.
Everybody else's fate bonds look pretty good, though.
Yeah, everybody else started being able to, be good at the stuff they wanted to be good at, and not be good at the stuff they didn't want to be good at, and have nice fate bonds. And his was just a mess. It just
a crazy mess of
constantly changing and eroding, and sometimes
fate bonds
super strong, and then sometimes not strong at all, and then sometimes really really dumb, and then maybe he'd have a bonus to intelligence for a while, and just shifting and picking up random purviews. To the point where at God, when this is finally all over, with the miasma of fate bonds, he ends up with -2 dexterity. The one stat at the beginning that he wanted to keep, he ends up with a -2. Completely loses the illusion. What?
Also manipulation.
Negative also manipulation. Yeah,
complete.
Manipulation was just destroyed. And positives to things like charisma. Because he was, using so many fate bonds, fucking with Jeff's fate bond so much, and positive to perception because he was spending so much legend watching other people's fate bonds, rolling perception occult.
It got ridiculous. That's one of the reasons he has a potpourri of random little boons at random little levels.
Yeah.
Because he'd get something and they would buy some for him. They'd be like, you need some Guardian, you need some health, because you've been doing stuff with Sangria, or you've been doing stuff with Sophia, and then they'd be like, but you don't need darkness. We're going to buy that off of you.
Here's some more. Here's some sun. Here's some Guardian.
He had 8 different animals at one point.
Maybe 9. Yeah, 8 or 9 different animals at one point.
Ridiculousness. And he would keep doing it. He eventually realized, okay, I don't want to change other people's fate bonds that much, but he would still do it for himself, which would still get him random stuff. And he was just very balls to the wall, so I'm going to do it. And it was the start of the Ghost character archetype of I'm the guy that is the fall guy for fate.
Yeah.
And that really is where he rode that to the end of the road.
And that started with, pretty early on in the story, it was, they were stuck on Circe's island, and they were, trying to, as soon as he got on the island, he failed his stamina and fortitude roll, and he was turned into an animal.
Because that's what Circe does.
So I think, was only he the one? Maybe also Marcus?
Originally, he was the only one that went on the island, because everybody said...
Yeah, but got turned into an animal.
Oh, that got turned into an animal? Yes, he was the only one.
So he's an animal, and everybody's working on the story and trying to do stuff, and he's stuck as a jaguar, kind of running around.
They were trying to rescue him, but they had to get through Circe, and she just wanted to have sex with Jeff, and it was a big dramatic production, so...
big story, but the end of the story is, or it wasn't really a story. It was like a 4-game stint inside a giant story. But the end of it, all of it was they get out of there. They use Molly to put her to sleep, and they go to run. He says, "All right, everybody, you guys go ahead to the boat. I got some stuff to finish here." They all get on the boat, and as a jaguar, he rapes Circe
While she's unconscious. He had vengeance. He's a Greek dude.
Yeah, he's a Greek dude with vengeance, and he was like, I think we must have been drinking a little. We often drink a lot.
A little bit. I think he'd been spending those 4 days thinking, I am so angry that I'm stuck as a jaguar. What do I do to her that's the worst thing I can do to her? And
then, he thought, well, he was reading a lot of Greek mythology at the time, was like, this is what they do.
That's what you do,
yeah,
right?
He's like, this is very, very in character. I'm totally cool with this.
Yeah, I mean, we were all like, well, I guess that happened.
Yeah, I think a few games later he came over and he's like, that was bad, I feel bad. As Tom, but
As Tom.
maybe
Ghost is fine with it, but...
But so, much later down the road, more towards where he's starting to get these negative fate bonds and stuff, he finds out that his actions had repercussions.
Yeah.
And that, Circe had parents, and they are not happy.
She has parents and grandparents who are Titans and are willing to just ruin his day.
Yeah, so he spends a great deal of time dealing with the repercussions of that, till eventually he does some grand gesture that gets Helios out, and then brings him back into the fold of the Pantheon and kind of
smooth things over. Please stop your wife and mother-in-law from killing me all the time.
Yeah, and they say, okay, cool, but you have to marry Circe.
That's one of my favorite scenes to watch you run, because at the moment that Hermes had gone aside and gone, okay, Hermes, did it go okay? And Hermes is like, yeah, Helios is cool. He says everything's forgiven. You're marrying Circe tomorrow. And the player looked at John and then grabs whatever's on the table and just starts pounding it back. Oh my god. And he had begun his road to rehabilitation at this point, because at a much earlier date, the PCs had laid siege to Paris for a lot of reasons involving African politics, and he had murdered a Scion there of Teutates, and she put him in psychic prison for 30 years as she died. And it was such a big event for him, it forced him to kind of really reflect on what he had done, which is the whole point of psychic prison. He had to kind of sit there for 30 years thinking about, I'm a bad person, I murdered people, I raped a woman, I never do anything good for anybody. And he kind of came out the other side being like, I need to make amends, I need to be a better person. And so by the time we got to this point where they were like, you have to marry Circe, he was trying really hard to be a good person and do the right thing to make up for all the bad things he'd done in the past. So he was like, okay, that's what's happening, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And
he was full road to recovery, so he immediately after switched to penitent.
Yeah, and I mean, he could have gotten out of it. He could have gotten Jeff in there to work his social mojo and try to change a deal, or he could have just run away, but he didn't do any of those things. So he's like, I'm gonna do it.
Nope, I'm gonna suck it up and marry the woman who fucking hates me.
And has 5 days of vengeance.
Yeah.
That's gonna be my life now.
Yeah. So then he did that for a while. Got to God and became the god of, he became Terminus. So that was a cool Roman name.
God of last chances.
God of luck and last chances, reflecting both of the things he does. At this point, he was very big into health and guardian. So it was psychopomp in, show up, heal, protect, use some magic for luck, and then bounce out. Yeah,
and he had... The one thing he never lost was magic, because that was the thing he was using all the time. Also psychopomp, but magic especially uses it constantly, and it just was reinforcing itself. So magic and psychopomp, he never lost those. So he always still had those original facets of his character. He just kind of became a mess in a lot of other areas.
But he took Terminus's name, but Terminus is actually already a god. And he didn't think there would be problems with that, and I think that's a reasonable thing to think. But there was some magic happened, and some other gods were involved, and basically the old Terminus was kind of merged with the new Terminus, so the Goz's character became this kind of mold of new Terminus, but it...
he became Terminus the god, so he was still himself, but when people would meet him, they'd be like, oh yeah, I know you from X millions of years ago. That Goz has no idea what they're talking about, because he just is Terminus and always has been Terminus now.
Right. Except the real Terminus' good friends, who were like, no, you're not Terminus. What happened? Wait. And so they're all off trying to figure out what the fuck happened.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like, shit, I thought I did all the
upset
good things.
Again.
Yeah. I did it again. And then his penitentness went into super high drive. Hyperdrive, maybe?
He became, he did a good nature shift. He became a penitent after he came out of psychic prison. Originally, he was a trickster, which made sense in his original character. And then after psychic prison and him like having this huge revelation, I have to fix my life. He was like, I'm changing my nature to penitent. That's what I'm going to be from now on.
Mm-hmm. But so as a penitent with this new situation with Terminus, he tried to figure out, what he could do to get this back. Obviously, people had conspired against him to kind of trick him into the situation.
Yeah. And for like a minute, he was like, well, maybe I can just do old Terminus's jobs, and Terminus's friends were not cool with that, so he's like, okay, then I'm not doing that, obviously. Maybe I can go make friends with him, and that didn't work. He just really, didn't have any way he could fix that.
Yeah.
He had done something that couldn't be fixed.
Yeah. And so it was, that was kind of like the last final struggle as he headed towards Ragnarok, was fixing all of those things.
Yeah, and he was having to watch it, rebound off other people, too, because Sophia got a lot of the fallout from that, too. Because she was in the same pantheon, and she was known to be his friend, so they would do stuff to her, too.
Yeah.
And she would always know to blame him.
But yeah.
Yeah, so
that was his...
If you look at his sheet and you see all the ridiculous stuff that doesn't make any sense, he has animal 4 times, but no animals hate him. That's because he got a bunch of animal bought by random fate bombs and got his animal ken bought off, and that's just the way things happened to him. He eventually hit a point where he was like, you know what? I have fucked around with fate so much that I pretty much deserve whatever it does to me.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's not something that I absolutely can't stand to lose, it's just going to happen. And I'll keep fighting against it when I have to, but I'm not going to win. He hit a point where he's like, I can't win. I have dug too deep. I have awoken something that should not have been awakened. I can't do it.
Yep, and that leads to his fate at Ragnarok.
Exactly, which we're not going to tell you what it is.
But you will find out never, because it will never get written. Ever.
I'm 85% done with the story right now. Not about ghosts, but I'm
working
on
a story
it.
that, 100 stories from now will develop into writing.
I'm working on it.
Mm-hmm.
You want to write it?
No, I don't want to write anything. I don't remember what happened. It was 4 years ago now. But that's everything.
4 years.
That went longer than we wanted. But not longer than I suspected it would.
But yeah, those are 2 characters that are good examples of starting with how you can start with a core concept and stats, and those can change. In Goza's case, change completely until you don't resemble that really anymore at God. Or
so he
Hella's
started as a trickster dexterity person and ended as a perception health and guardian person.
Yeah, and at the same time, his personality changed from a kind of a little shit that just irritated everybody to a super penitent, I want to do good in the world kind of a guy. And then Kettle is an example of somebody who really dug their nails in and said, I'm not changing. I'm going to stay with this character archetype. Mm-hmm. No matter what the adversity is. I'm going to fight my fate bonds. I'm going to keep buying the things I want to have. I might occasionally develop other skills that happen, but I'm not going to go out to do anything but the job I want to do. And she managed to do that all the way through to God as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't be afraid if your fate bonds are horrible. You could be Kettle. You got to just, as long as you don't dig yourself the ghost hole, you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully that answered your one-line question with a 40-minute answer.
Yeah. I hope that we answered what you wanted.
Yeah. Hey, everybody, if you're still listening, you can subscribe up there and do the thing. But I know you're watching this on the blog and not on YouTube, so this means nothing.
At the end of this, though, you can click the link to go to it on YouTube, and you can like it there.
That's way more work. What she's going to do is she's going to use a button on the video, like I told you, it didn't happen. But if a video maybe poke right here, where I'm poking, we can put a thing here. What was the voice I was doing? Mickey Mouse voice earlier?
He was doing Mickey Mouse voice just to irritate me. But, so apparently clicking a link that goes to that is better than waiting to the end of the video and clicking a link that goes to that. I don't know. But we're going to try something, so.
Boom!
I'm not doing it online. Okay, we're going to go now before I get punched in the face. Oh, bye guys. Oh God.